Oh boy. Um, Hope everything is working. Hang on, let me get this thing straightened out. Uh, okay, I'm back. Oh, jeez. Hey, Mark. Hi, Thomas. Hi, football fan. Sorry about the mix-up. I got this blasted thing. It always defaults to my iPhone unless I unplug my iPhone, and I had to plug in everything else. Let me get this over here. Oh boy, we just got back from the WatchTime show, and I'm a little discombobulated. Had a great time, and I'll tell you guys all about it. Um. Okay. Hey, Watch. Hi, Mike. Um. Let me see. Do I have a? Wonder if there's something here that is. Well, let me try this. I'll try this. Okay. Proper dashboard. Man. Okay. Hey, Mike. Uh, Sometimes I really get things fouled up, and today is one of those days. I found out whenever I try to get it done in a hurry, everything gets all balled up. Anyway, first of all, can everybody hear okay? Oh, Mark, good. Everything is up. Let me see if I can put a link in for this real quick. 1 second. Here it is. This ought to be here. Link. There it is. Aha. Okay, Hierology Lounge. And right here. Boop. Perfect. Post. Okay, good. We're good. Okay. I think I unscrewed things up enough so that we can have a discussion. Okay. First of all, do any of you guys go to the WatchTime show who are here now? There aren't very many of us right now. Thanks mainly to me and my fumbling around. So let me tell you about it. It's the kind of show that I like. And there was some people there that a lot of people I met, and to be honest with you, I can't remember everyone I met, okay? Because I met a lot of people, and it was really nice. In fact, if there's ever a chance that you can go to this, do so. I met a lot of people I did remember. There were just a few people would come up and say, "Hi, I like your show," and oh, great, and had a talk. Okay, let me sort of start off. every year they have something different at the Watch Time show in New York. Except for one thing that they've been very consistent on over the years. I forgot what year they started, but I I went to the first show. Was the second year they had it. Not very many people were there. And so anyway, we went, my wife and I, and had a ball. It was great. Just a few people there, looked around, learned a lot. There were all kinds of great things there. They had this one thing. They took everybody's picture in like a studio professional photograph, but then you had to taste this tequila. I had several pictures taken. Anyway, uh, the what am I wearing? Okay, I'm wearing a cashmere sweater. I think it's and a brigade, a black wool brigade hat. Okay, planet Earth. This is my travel watch. This is my Parmigiani Hemispheres. Um, love this watch. It's a dual time, dual night and day, and everything else. However, during the show, I wore my Larique, but then I had all of these other watches I took with me. But this one is on the train and sort of just a traveling part. I like to wear my travel watch. Okay, poor thing hasn't been able out of the time zone, so I can use the dual time zones in a while. But anyway, a fashionista. That's it. Boy, I tell you, I love to hear that. Uh, fashionista. All righty. Um, so what happened? Okay, so this is, and like I said, every year they do something different. So this is what they had this year. So we went in, got our coats checked and all of that stuff. And boy, they don't let you take anything in, except my wife was able to take her purse in, and that was about it. And then they had a thing upstairs, and it said independent watchmakers. So I thought, well, I'll start with the independent watchmakers because they tend to be my favorite. And I did want to see the one person I wanted to see was Vianney Halter. And I went up there and I didn't see his booth anywhere up there. I thought he's independent. Finally, I went and I talked to Kari Butenlanen for a second, and he's very, I'll say, taciturn. He doesn't say very much. He nods and a few things like that. And so that was nice. And also, too, I reminded him that, hey, we had our watch, showed him our watch again, saying this new one we're using Comble Mine, which he also owns and does his Guillot shave for him. So, hey, Junior. So anyway, talked with him and showed him some pictures of some watches, and he sort of shrugged. Rancher wanted me to find out about the Urban Jurgensen, and I didn't get I don't know if they know or not, so I didn't want to push it. But then I went back and I was talking to all these guys. Almost as soon as I went in there, I met people I started talking to. The first guy that I met was the most fun for me because he just lives, not far from here. Lives up. He's still right in here in around the Hartford area, and so anyway, I'm glad to run into him. And finally, we had another guy, super nice guy, Alexander. And then I ran into another person I really wanted to see, and that was Dominic. Dominic was a guy who got me this table right here, the one that I used for doing the test of concept with the two movements that I had. And what I wanted to do, I had a picture of this that I took with me, and I found Vianney Halter. What they had done, he and Kari Butenlanen were at the same place. There was this big sign that said Butenlanen, and then there was this little thing that had Vianney Halter. So oh boy, went over, and so I took had my camera with me, and so I had a picture of the table, and then I had a slow motion of what we did with the for the resonance, and I showed it to him, and he was very cool about it. He said, "Oh, I see you got the resonance going." I said, "Yeah," and I showed him the plate, and then I showed him how we put it on cardboard and it didn't work. And he said, no, it wouldn't work on cardboard, but it would work on that metal plate. And it did. And so that was a huge kick. He said, let me show you some. He had one of these, this is the cardboard test plate, but this is what he gave me to look at. He said, take a look at this. And he handed me one of these things. It's great big thing. And he pulled out this watch he had. He says, okay, take a look at this. So I looked at the thing, and it was one of his new watches. And it was like looking inside of a cathedral from the top. It just seemed to go down and down and down with all of this just gorgeous clockwork, watchwork that he had. And I just was blown away. I just was like, that was the best thing that happened. The funny thing then, so I went over and I talked to Dominic. I said, Dominic, who's the guy who really helped me on the metal work. He did more than that. Well, he had somebody do it for him actually, which is just as good. His son did it. So here he goes. So he goes over there. He and somebody else, Alexander, I think they both wanted to meet him. So they went over there, and all of a sudden there was a crowd there. So we'll go later. And he turned around, and then he was gone. So I felt really bad for him about that, but it was that was really the key person I wanted to see. There were some other things I wanted to look into too. But here's what happened, and it's probably the best thing to happen. I kept meeting more and more and more people upstairs. We're upstairs in this little area that they had the Independence in, and there weren't just a few of them, but one of them turned out to be really important, and that was Moritz Grossman. Now, Moritz Grossman was there as an independent, which I thought was sort of interesting. Okay, yeah, they're independent, so is Rolex. But anyway, I'm always thinking of that great big beautiful building that Moritz Grossman has in Glashütte. So anyway, their CEO, Christine Hutter, was there. And so my wife and I went over there, and they have one of this really beautiful woman's watch, and I showed it to her, and we started talking, and I told her about what we had done. Gee whiz, I guess it was right before the beginning of the pandemic and right into the pandemic. Well, Moritz Grossman, of course, and Christine Hutter are German. And so I said, oh, by the way, do you know Rolf Lang? Oh, God dang, she knows Langs. And we started talking about this, that, and the other thing. And then I told her about I said, look, this was your idea. I said, a number of years ago, you had a thing with Red Bar, and Red Bar you send them a watch and they would look at it and feature it and so on and so forth. And I said, I thought that was such a great idea. So I had gone to visit Rolf Lang, and I told Rolf Lang, I said, if this might be able to help you, I said, here's what we can do. I said, we'll get together with 12 guys, and each one of us will keep the watch for a month and put it on social media and then pass it on. Well, we did that. In fact, we ended up with a baker's dozen. We ended up with 13 because Rick at the very end said, he wanted to be part of us. Fine. So we did that. And then this went right into the pandemic, and that was, everything sort of shut down. So we had that going during that period. But really, the kernel of the idea was from Christine Hutter, and I was sorry. I talked to her about that, and I showed her the watch that I had my Larique watch on. I said, well, what we did was we worked with Agenor and some other stuff I'm not going to tell you about that we talked about that I might talk about later, but I want to talk about it right now because it's sort of an iffy kind of possibility that I think I'd be very excited about, and we could do some really cool things together. But her watches, I mean, my God, they're just fantastic. I love Moritz Grossman watches. The good thing about it that I can tell you about that they've been selling out like mad, and that's importantly good. Um, so anyway, that was a cool thing. She gave my wife a bag with all these goodies in it for some things on women's watches, and so that was sort of a cool thing. Um, let's see. I had a whole bunch of other stuff happen before I rattle on and on and on. Do you guys have anything you want to ask about? By the way, somebody said Archie Luxury was there to use the Archie Luxury. The answer is no. I did look for him a little, but I didn't do that. No, Forbin, Mertz Grossmann, the original one, was a famous German watchmaker, but you knew that, Forbin. I know you knew that. Wait, where's Rancher when we need him? He's the only guy that can get him to behave. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so any other question you guys have? I mean, any real questions? Well, Forbin's got to stand in the corner, so you can bring something else up. Well, let me see. Hey, John. Thomas, what are the most interesting watches you were taken by at WatchTime? Great question. Geez. Oh, easy. That one that Vianney Halder showed me. I was taken by it. I was flattened out by it. I mean, this thing is just this incredible, gorgeous watch. He had just come out with this stacked dual resonance, and that was talked about. And I think the one he showed me was that, but I wasn't able to. I didn't see the dual balances on the side. Instead, I had a top-down view with looking at like going looking at it that way. So I was it's funny. Sometimes you're so blown away by the just sort of the general appearance, you quit or you don't think about looking at the details. I mean, it was sort of looking at, you go in and like you're looking at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and you don't notice there's a candy wrapper that somebody stuck on a roof, things like that. It's the whole experience was just like, whoa. So that was the most interesting thing, Thomas. The problem with that is that it's this wonderful watch, but these things are like hundreds of thousands. This so that was probably the biggest thing I looked at. What was the nicest watch I saw? The Larique. The nicest one I saw. Well, this woman's watch that Christine Hutter had, Moritz Grossmann. It's always been one, and I showed that to her. And so she had it on my wife's wrist before I could say, why, before I could say there's no way I can afford that. I'll put it that way. And it's this gorgeous watch. My wife had on her Beauvais, which it was pretty nice too. The one that I had up with the guilloche and the mother of pearl and the diamond indexes and the solid gold case. That thing was like, in sort of with the Bowen crown and then the bar lug at the bottom. I mean, it was really a spectacular watch. Unfortunately, she had that on, so I guess he figured, well, he's going to get her that. He can get this one. My wife would, I'm sure, think it was a great idea. Okay, the nicest watch. Well, that was the nicest. All of the ones I don't know what happened or when it happened, but at some point I decided I really, really, really like um, Moritz Grossman watches, and I think what it was is this, and I saw one there too, and I just loved it. Is Did I ever tell you? I think I told you about one of the videos I had. It's something called the Hammermatic. And the Hammermatic is an automatic, except instead of working, your typical automatic works like this one. Here you have a rotor, and the old rotor goes around, and that's how it's kept wound. What the Hammermatic is something that was developed, and it could have been by the original Moritz Grossman or something that was done at the new company. And what it is, it's really cool, is you're wearing a watch, you're going back and forth like this. Well, they got a hammer. They go whoop. Every time you move, it goes whoop, whoop. And that's how it's kept wound. And I thought, wow, what a cool thing. And for a lot of reasons. One, without usually if you have um, one of these, you can't see much of the movement. This one's not so bad because it's got sort of a skeletonized rotor, and you can see a lot more with it. But with the old the Hammermatic itself is really interesting. So I would say that one I really liked a lot. So hey, David, anything about high horologist Hertz issue and performing slower movements over pushing technical limits for higher beat frequencies? Now, that's the kind of question I should have asked more of. You're right. That is absolutely right. Last year, I'd asked Kari Vuonalainen about if he ever planned to have silicon, and it was like, would just, I mean, it was more, the answer was more in his expression of distaste for the whole idea that a real craftsman would do that to a watch. I'll put it that way. A few years ago, I did ask him about that, and here's what I had done beforehand. I'd been looking at the entries into the Grand Prix by a lot of these top watchmakers. Same thing as before. They were either 21,600 semi-oscillations, 3 hertz, or less. A couple of them were 4 hertz, but most of them were less. The ones by Zenith, they like 5 hertz. But for the most part, the ones, if you look at the ones by that are part of the AHCI, this is by the way too, you got to really take a look at the AHCI website. Go there, ahci.ch, and then click on members, and then click on members website, and they'll have all of the things that they have available. And so that would be one. One of the ones that I found really interesting was, I think it was Girard Charles. I put a picture up of it. The thing that was interesting about them, and then I found out they were to be more interesting, when I first glanced at their watches, I wasn't like sort of a Tonneau-ish kind of shape, but so I went and tried one on. I had a picture of it on High Horology Lounge, and I tried it on, and they had a green one, and they had a rubber strap with it, and they were telling me about it was very much of a sports watch model for that. But the thing I liked about them were two things. First of all, once I tried it on and looked at it, it's really a very pretty watch. Not crazy about the rubber because unless I'm hoping to take up pickleball, apparently that's not exactly too strenuous, but I would have something like that. In general, I'm not crazy about rubber straps, even though I have I think, one or two watches with a rubber strap for that very reason, for keeping so that you don't end up with messing up a really nice gaiter or a leather strap or something like that. So I guess that I don't know if that's a very good answer. The other thing about the Girard Charles watches is that they use a Vaucher movement, and they're upfront about it. That was the best thing I like. Another one too that was impressive is Chopek. They've always, I've always sort of liked them, but now they have their own movement, and I really like the way they did the sort of the way they have the finger out for that. Beauvais making gorgeous watches. H. Moser. I wanted to find out more about H. Moser, but as I got close to they were so crowded with people, I just finally, I couldn't get to them. Something funny happened to me there, and I've got a picture of the watch, or I have a good picture of the back of the movement. This guy comes walking up to me, real nice guy, and he asked me, he says, "Are you so and so?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, I like to show him yada yada yada." But then he had this watch. He says, "Let me show you this watch." And there's a new company, and they were coming out with a watch, and he showed me it on the back, and they had a brand new movement that they had created themselves. And so this is something I'm very glad to see, is that on the one hand, if you're going to make a really nice watch, but you're really not going to make the movement for it, put in a good one. Okay, if you're going to have a luxury watch, it's going to cost $15,000 or so, or even $10,000. You shouldn't put in a cheap, not cheap, I'll say super inexpensive. The basically a Solita, something like that. It's not a bad movement. It's not a terrible movement. Thing is, though, it's not a $15,000 one either. What these guys had done, they had made their own 4 Hertz, which didn't really excite me too much. But I told the guy, he said, I gave him one of my cards, and I said, "Hey, send me the information because it sounds really interesting. I'd really like to find out more about that." And Girard Charles, like I said, they're a new outfit, and it's one of the ones, like I said, on the dial, it had sort of a tonneau shape, and I don't know what, but there's some kind of connection between Girard Charles and Gerald Genta. Maybe it's Gerald Charles, something like that. Anyway, but they're a really interesting one, I think. Very interesting company. Boy, I tell you, the guy that I talked to was on the ball too. I mean, usually most of the people there is that you talk to somebody, boy, they know their watches inside and out. None of these things like, nah, you don't get that. I tell you another thing. A lot of waiting lists. When somebody said, "Oh, there's a 7-year waiting list for a Caribou in London," somehow that didn't surprise me. There's waiting lists for FP Journe. There's waiting lists for certain H. Mosers. The waiting list is a good indicator of the interest that people have, sort of a post-pandemic interest and stuff. That's one of the problems. If you've got a waiting list of people, why would you lower the price? Well, the answer is you wouldn't. And so you're not seeing a lot of that, except in some watches. And sort of a funny thing, some of the really good watches, like the Daniel Roth and the Roger Dubuis, these went up. Some, the ones from the early 2000s, these were sort of, people discovered them, and because no one else was making them, but there were a lot of these available on eBay and on Chrono 24 and elsewhere. And so their prices, they went up. And now that these other ones are coming in, but I mean, when you have the ones, the most favored ones, have a waiting list for it. Even Chopek, I think they were talking about a waiting list. So, man, yeah, Webz. The reason I'm back soon, it was 3 days. I just went to the one on Friday night. The reason I'm back, we had a dinner we have to go to tonight here in Connecticut. So, I would have liked to have stayed longer. Hi, Eddie. How you doing? Armin Strom. Forbin, you're right again. That's another one. I wanted to spend some more time with him, but they finally we got kicked out. It was time went so quickly. First of all, I would say probably 90% of the show, I was just talking to other watch collectors. I mean, they're the best people to talk to there, and we were just talking about collecting watches, and it was a lot of fun. And meeting people, and they had different things. Kirk was there. Kirk Benson, who was he's our transfer coordinator. Alexander was there, who I met. He was my neighbor. Paul, one of the Paul is something like, I want to say Paul Schaefer, but it's not Schaefer, but it's something like that. He was a real interesting guy. Makes airplane things. Scott and his son were there, and Kaz. I ran into Kaz. I ran into another neighbor, Mike Margolis. He was so super busy, and so those. I mean, it just was like, and so many different ones. There were these 4 guys from Texas. I think they were from Austin, which is the finer part, put it that way. And they were more fun to talk to, just great guys. There were these 4 great guys, and they were, this one guy had this wild jacket on, with, I think not minions, but they were such bright yellow with all of these different characters on it. And, they were just fun guys to spend a little time with them. And we took one of these dog piles. Everybody put their watch in, and had a shot like that. Those things are fun. Open bar, so people had they had a lot of fun. Let me see what else is going on. Yeah, that dual force resonance, Forbin, that was something I wanted to ask him about. But once I showed it to Vianney Halder, and he looked at it and goes, "Wow, yeah, that's really cool." But then I went down to the Armin Strom. I think Armin Strom and H. Moser were near each other. Both of them were really crowded. So I sort of missed out on that one, I guess. Okay. Opinion on Laurier Jewel. Oh, you mean Laurent Ferrier? Is that who you mean? I'm not sure who you mean on that one. Hey, Caesar, how you doing, man? Better late than never. Than ever. Okay, let me see. I'm trying to think of something else. Like I said, I probably spent about 85-90% of the time upstairs in this little loft they had. They had drinks and food, so there was no reason to leave. And it was trying to think who else that really made an impression. Oh yeah, I started to tell you about this guy that came up with that watch they're making, and he's gonna, like I said, he's gonna send me more information about that. But that is one thing. I think 2 things are happening. I think a lot of us are forcing watch brands to give more information about what's really in their watches. Now, here's a funny thought that I've had, and that's is that I would rather have a watch with a movement by one of the great watchmakers than the same company having an in-house one, because the question would be, how can they have one as good as X? For example, the Chanel I got, the Chanel Monsieur, has a a, a movement that wasn't totally by, but involved the participation of Romain Gauthier. Now, would it be any better if this were like Chanel said, "Oh, this is an in-house movement that they did," and I would sort of wonder, well, Chanel number 5, okay, but a movement. So this is sort of something. Now, one of the things that happens that I think we may begin to see more of, in fact, we may see too much of, and that is buying these really good watchmakers. LVMH bought Le Temps, I think Le Temps something or other. H. Moser bought an interest in Agenor. Chanel has interest both in Canesi, which is a movement maker for Tudor. All of these things like that. And I think that may be something that I think would be a benefit to collectors in this way, is that they're putting better movements in. Now, the ones like this one guy that showed me the movement they made, I would like to find out more about that. I'm glad to see that. Most of the people making their movements, so the younger guys, the young independents, they're $100,000 movements. Now, I'm not saying they're not worth it. I'm simply saying I can't afford it, and most other people can't either. And so it's sort of trying to find that. I think the solution that Larique has is a pretty good one, so far. It's a lot of work, but it's a pretty good, interesting solution. Was other odd companies there, Pinnacle, Gauthier. Oh, God. I didn't see Gauthier may have been there. I didn't see, I was up with the independents, and I don't remember seeing his stuff. Is that you have, it's very strange. There's so many great people and great watches that were there that I thought Gauthier, but I thought he was going to be there. I wish I had seen him if he had been. Same thing with Picanet. But there's I was having such a good time talking with other watch collectors, and a few the watchmakers I really spent most of my time with, really talking about things with, were V&A Halter. I talked to Kari Butenlanen for a little while, but that was more about stuff we were doing with his companies, Comblemine and Butenlanen and Catton, and a little about the, what's going on with. I almost got this feeling it was like, none of your business really. It's like, oh, what are you guys doing with, whatchamacallit, the Urban Jurgensen? What are you guys doing with Urban Jurgensen? You get those kinds of things, and the Finns are better at it than anybody. Just anyway, John, those are good things. I had. I had written down all of these companies I was going to go look at, and the first one was at the top of my list was V&E Halter, and that one got done. I didn't think I was going to end up with this great conversation that I had with Christine Hutter for Moritz Grossman. That one may have future kinds of good things for watch collectors. Hey, Thomas. Laurier are the French-based micro brand that have some nice steel sports designs, but mainly use Miyota movements. Not bad if you like the looks of. Yeah, that's there. There seems to be This is one thing I think that's really important. Some people, they get all interrogative about, how accurate is it? Well, I'm not saying accuracy is a bad thing. It's not, obviously, but there's a certain limit. I mean, like, if we started with quartz watches and said, okay, we want something more accurate, not a single one of the major players in Switzerland would be around anymore. I mean, you can take a cheap quartz watch, and I don't know of any of these great watchmakers that will have something that is as accurate. Okay, so there's, and then so when you start jacking up the hertz level, you're not going to come anywhere near quartz. First of all, will you have it more accurate? You might, or you might do something else to end up with an accurate watch that doesn't involve jacking up the hertz and the scrambling the movements a little more. This is what I like about our Larique watch. 3 hertz keeps beautiful time. I mean, really good time. Other watches, I'm sure if I had a quartz watch to compare it to, the quartz watch would beat it. But, okay, so that's sort of like, in a way, so if you have a Miyota, that, I don't know. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? I think if you have a watch, a really nice watch, and they got a Miyota in it, if the rest of the watch is doing something interesting, that may not be a bad thing. The one that MB&F had, the Mad Red. Have any of you guys seen one of those? One of the guys from Texas had one. It's a fairly thick watch. I'd put a thick watch up against my Dandy any day. It's thick too. So he showed me this, and then on top you got the Mad Red thing going around. That's a fun watch. Now I think that one may have a Miyota movement, but it does some really interesting things on top of that. Same thing with Gorilla watches. You have this Wandering Hours. This is sort of a funny thing. They got Wandering Hours on top that was done by Vaucheur. They did some of the, I guess, the sub thing that made it work. And that was that. And underneath, I don't know if any, I think there may be something like a Miyota. I'm not even sure. But Thomas, that's just a really good point. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? I mean, I've got no problem as long as I know the movement in a watch. I'm happy because then I can make a good decision. If somebody says, here, I got this watch, I got this on it, I got this on it, and I got this on it, and this is what it does, and it's got a Miyota movement, and it's $20,000. No way. Is it $10,000? No way for that. If you're going to use a really inexpensive movement, then the price should be lower. You can put some interesting complications on it, then that's another story. Then you can base it on the kinds of complications that are beyond the base movement that you've got. Did you see the mech watch guy who are making an in-house movement in America? I don't know. The guy that I met, who's starting, they're working on he showed me this new movement. I've never seen that movement before. One thing, it didn't look like, there's certain things you can tell if it's an ETA or a Solid or something like that, or a Miyota. And I didn't see that in the movement he made. Now, he's from New York. But I don't know the MEC guys you're talking about, whole milk. It does sound interesting, though. RGM. Yeah, I saw RGM there. I really didn't have anything to ask him about. Um, his Roland Murphy is very much, I think, is the American watchmaker. I mean, as far as a guy who does stuff, but he also uses a lot of Swiss movements, and so it's the watches that I like and would really am considering getting at some point haven't changed. And I'm not interested in any of the new ones that came out. The ones that RGM has that I really like are the Corps of Engineers. That one is just that's a cool watch. How about Mr. and Mrs. Harbring? No, they didn't have a booth there this year. I think they have. I met them at one time, but I'm not sure. I think that a long time ago they didn't have it. See, this I think this is sort of a funny kind of thing. We're at a funny time with watches now. It costs them a bundle, I would imagine. First of all, the venue is New York, huge number of there's gazillions financially there, and you have some people who can buy any watch that you plan to make. You had a lot of interest. You had a good crowd. They sold out the Friday night one. I guess right now in New York they're running the show still, and they'll do it again tomorrow. By the way, tomorrow Sunday, if any of you are in the New York area, I think it's free. At least it's free. I think it's free tomorrow. Forbin, is there company acting like Harry Winston? Well, I think Chanel is. I think it's Chanel would be, but Chanel has, I think, a little different focus. Harry Winston, the last I heard was it's been a while ago. Some guy at the Harry Winston boutique in New York told me, he said, well, I understand they're going to put in Blancpain movements from now on in the Harry Winston watches. They may have done that for all I know, but they also stuck in silicon along with it. They used to have the Opus models. So boy, they had those are very cool. I don't know if they're going to do that again. I think they should, because I don't think I don't too many people would even cross the street to get a Harry Winston, a new one. Since you mentioned Harry Winston, though, boy, I tell you, they've got if you get the right one, they had a lot of really world-class watchmakers working on those watches. That's how I first found out about Jean-Marc Wiederreck, was the retrograde movement that he has in my Premier by Retrograde by Harry Winston. Oh, yes, that's right, Eddie. Yeah, there was something about that. I tell you, things have been sort of busy, but for me, and I miss a lot of things. I get this stuff from Horological Society of New York. One of the things that was sort of cool, Dominic, the guy who did the brass table for me, had his HSNY pin on, and I just kicked myself. Doggone it, I forgot to bring. I really like my HSNY. I don't know why. It's a little triangle, like I'm a real watch collector or something. Yeah, John. Yeah, today I got a little extra because I didn't have any this morning. I thought I'd better fill it a little. Have you ever had a chance to talk to Ludwig Osling? No, I haven't, but he would be a guy I'd love to talk to. This guy's a super bright guy. Yeah, he would be one I would like to talk to, Joel. You're right. Hey, Sams, do you like the Omega Moonwatch? Yes, I do. I think that's now the 318 is the one I like. I tell you though, that what is it, the 56 something or other, or the 86? There's one just like the Moon Watch with a little different movement and about a third of the cost. But I guess if I got a Moon Watch, I'd want to get one with the 318. But I've got a big sports watch, and I don't like chronographs, but that would be one if I did. But if it came down to a chronograph, I'd want to get one with the agograph movement. There are a lot of watches I like, I really like, but they're just sort of not on my buying list. I think if I bought one, I'd get one, and then, have you ever got a watch? Oh, you got to get that one again, and then you get it and you never wear it. I think, if I had a Moon Watch, I'd love to have it, but I don't think I'd ever wear it. And so on that. Anyway, okay. Well, it's almost 5, so I better kick out. My wife has to dress me for going to a dinner tonight. Anyway, guys, yeah, and a streamline. Oh, yeah, you're right, Truman. Exactly. That'd be neat. Well, look, guys. Hey, Par. We're sort of breaking up right now. Anyway, guys, thanks for coming. And I'm sorry about the mess up I had when I first got started, but it was a little too much going on all at once. Take care. And I'll be putting stuff up on High Horology Lounge as I get these different pictures and stuff.